Hello and welcome to the first of my YouTube Android tutorials. We're going to be making Android apps in this little mini-series. I'm not sure how long it will go on for. Anyway, I'm going to assume that you have a basic knowledge of Java and that you have Android Studio version 2.2.2 or higher installed, because that's the one that I'm using today. This episode we're going to be doing basic activity design. So we're going to create one activity with a button and an image, and then another activity with text view and edit text. And then in the next episode, we'll make that all make sense and we'll make it actually do something. But this episode is just to get the hang of how to make an activity or two. We're going to create our first project by hitting Start a New Android Studio Project. So I'm going to call this Android Tutorials 1. And that's just saving in my Android Studio folder. So we'll press Next. This is usually where I start. I start with API 13 usually, just because certain features come in at certain versions. So API 13, you get 97.4% of the devices, and you get a ton of features. We're going to make an empty activity. The first one will just be generated for us, which is really good. Or let's just say the difference between an empty activity and a basic activity is this little circle here, which is called a floating action button. It's good, and it's useful for some things, but in this particular app, we won't need it. We'll come back to those later on. We'll hit Next. We can just call it main activity for now. It doesn't matter what you call it. Okay, cool. So we've got this. We've got our main activity class here. This is where all our code's going to go. And then at the top here, you can see that there's activity underscore main. And this is where our design viewer is. So by default, it's got Hello World in here. You'll notice that it has Android Tutorials 1 at the top. That's because of the project name. We can change that. So if you go over to the left, you'll see there's a manifest button. Double click on that. And in here, we've got the name of the app. Now, we'll do a bit more on this in a future episode, but you'll notice there is an @string and then app underscore name field. Now you can have this as a string constant, and it's advised because then you can have a bunch of different languages. So we're going to go and edit it from the string file. So go into this res folder here, and then head down to values, and then strings.xml, and then double click on that. And you'll see in here, the only string we've made is app underscore name. We're not going to make a load of localized strings for the moment. We're just going to put them in plain text, but we will come back to this file at a later date, and we'll start using localization because it is very useful when you want to keep your app, when you want to translate your app into different languages. Let's call this activity test, and you can call it whatever you want. Okay. Currently, we've got Hello World in here. Let's just get rid of this completely. Let's start from scratch. What I want to do is I want to put a button in. So in the second episode, this button is going to do something, but for now, it's not got any use really. So these guidelines here should come on by default. You can put them in the corners and they'll snap. We're going to put it in the middle just for the sake of it. And you can see up here, you can change everything. So we're going to call it test button. And then the text on it, we'll just call it change activity. So currently this does nothing. If I was to load up the app, it would do completely nothing, but we will sort that out later. So we need to create another activity now, which is the activity we're going to go to. If I go to File, and then New, and then go down to Activity, we're going to make another empty activity, which means it's got nothing in at all. Because remember, the basic activity then has the action button. There are some activities here that need higher APIs. For now, an empty activity is what we need, and we're going to call this second activity. Now, you'll notice here this layout name changes by default, so actually, we don't need to do that ourselves, which is really nice. I like that. We don't want that as the launcher activity. We may as well have it generate a file. In the package name, that's just what's over here. Okay, cool. So we can hit finish on that, and it's opened this for us. So this is our code again. This is the activity. Nothing is being created in here by default, but that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to add a linear layout inside of this. We'll keep the relative layout as the parent, but if we just drag that in here and then make sure at the top the match parent are the width and height, and that just means that we can fill the whole screen because nothing else is going to be on here, so that's fine. So at the top we'll have a text label. And then at the bottom, we're going to have a plain text field. Now you'll notice there's nothing else that you can do here. apart from move them up and down from each other. This is because it's a linear layout. Whereas if we had a relative layout, we could put it wherever we wanted. So if I put something else in the main activity, a toggle button for instance, I can put it anywhere on there, and that's completely fine, but we're not doing that for now. So back in the second activity, let's call this updating text view because it's going to constantly update eventually. So we don't need anything there for now. If you click at the bottom here, view all properties, we can get a bunch more. And actually, let's put some text back in there. There you go, there's text back in there just to demonstrate this. Let's add a bit of padding to it and some margins. So at the bottom, we'll have a little bit there, just so the name is a little bit further away. So I've put 16 dp on the bottom there, which is standard. dp is stands for density pixels, I believe. But there are different ways of measuring distances between things, and that's so that on different devices it's essentially the same. Okay, so a little bit of padding, we'll just put 4 dp in there, and then that will do. That'll be fine. And then we may as well, why not? Let's change the text color while we're here. So you can click in here to use a resource and get a color. Yeah, for now, let's just leave it like that. Let's have dark red, that will do. And then let's get rid of the text completely, or just put a ... in there so we know that nothing's actually changed. And then in here, this is the edit text that we had before. I'm just going to go back with this little button at the top. You can change back to a simpler version. Let's call it, let's stick with it. Let's call this updating edit text, because this is related to the text view. So when you edit the edit text here, we're going to be editing the text view as well, because it's going to send whatever's here up to the text view. So it's a very simple app, but we may as well just do that for now. So at the moment here, you can see there's an input type, and there are a bunch of different things. So you can change it so it's just an email address or a password or something like that, or a phone number. We actually don't need it to be anything in particular. So let's just put text cap sentences. So all that means is that at the beginning of every sentence, it will put a capital letter. So that will do for us. By default, let's get rid of the text, and we're going to add a placeholder. So if we go in here, hint is what we want. We don't want a placeholder, we want a hint. We'll just put here, if I can spell, enter some text. And so if we launch the app, we can see this. I'm going to go into the ADB here, and the device that I'm going to use will be a Nexus 5. Purely because it's a phone, and that's just easy for me. I'm going to click use same selection for future launches, and this will launch the app as we have it right now, but you can use whichever device you like. Okay, so the emulator's just starting up the app now. Oh, there we go. Okay, it was just taking a while to load in. I don't like the fact that that text is black, but we can change that in a second. So currently, if we click the button, it does absolutely nothing, and you can't access this second activity at all. But when we come back into the next tutorial, I will show you exactly how to do that. So thank you for watching, and give me a like or whatever you meant to do, and I'll see you next time.